peers, says Adia Harvey Wingfield, a sociology professor at Washington University in St. Louis.
You can work from home and you can be away from a lot of the interpersonal challenges that can make it harder for Black workers. But I worry that working from home will also take Black workers out of the networks and connections that they need to advance in the modern workplace.
Add to all this the hard discussions about race that happened virtually in many workplaces after the murder of George Floyd. Lynn Perry Wooten is president of Simmons University and specializes in organizational management.
People are scared to go back to work. They're like, are things going to return to normal?
She's heard from Black workers who are worried all their company's promises to commit to diversity, equity, and inclusion won't really happen. Wooten says businesses planning to bring workers back to the office.
They need to keep in mind, why do my employees not to want to come back? And what can I do to ensure that my culture is welcoming and inclusive?
Wooten says with so many employees feeling safe at home, companies need to take additional steps to ensure everyone feels safe at work, too. In Washington, I'm Kimberly Adams for Marketplace.
And the first Broadway show to reopen after pandemic will be Springsteen on Broadway, of course, seeing as he was born to run. June 26th, St. James on 44th Street. Our producers are Meredith Gerritsen, Stephen Ryan, Daniel Shin, and Erica Soderstrom. I'm David Brancaccio with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Storm season is here, and JEA is doing everything possible to prepare. And you can too, by updating your contact information and signing up for alerts. You can stay up to date on power restoration efforts. Update your contact info today at JEA.com.
Wayne Hogan of the Terrell Hogan Law Firm.
I'm Wayne Hogan. One texter call can wreck it all. Learn more through distracted driving presentations for teens and the workforce. Arrive alive. Let's end distracted driving.
Learn more at waynehogan.law.
Baptist Health is proud to offer 3D screening mammography at locations throughout Northeast Florida. Early detection of breast cancer saves lives. More info at baptistjacks.com/mammo.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Ahead in the next 5 minutes, live local news for the First Coast from the WJCT News team.
A First Coast bakery learns during Pride Month that homophobia doesn't pay. I'm Melissa Ross, and just ahead this hour on First Coast Connect, how local businesses run afoul of the culture wars when they post on social media. We'll take a closer look. That's coming up, then later.
The National Climate Bank Act is proposing to create a nonprofit, federally funded bank that would then channel funding through green banks across the nation.
Efforts to create a national climate bank. We'll speak with the Solar Energy Loan Fund here in Florida. UNF makes a major archaeological discovery, and we've got some summer read ideas for you in our book club. It's all ahead. After the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. One of the world's most widely used delivery network providers says it's identified a technical glitch that led to massive outages across the web this morning. As NPR's David Gura reports, content provider Fastly says it's fixed the problem.
For more than an hour, several major news sites were unavailable, including the New York Times and CNN. San Francisco-based cloud services company Fastly identified a configuration that triggered disruptions. And in a tweet, the company said its global network is coming back online. The outages also affected payment processors, including Stripe and PayPal. The website for the government of the United Kingdom was also down temporarily. Fastly's technology makes websites load faster, caching data closer to the users who are trying to access it. David Gura, NPR News, New York.
People who are fully vaccinated are very unlikely to transmit the coronavirus to others. NPR's Ping Wong reports that's the takeaway from a new study conducted by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
All it takes to transmit the coronavirus is an infected person coughing or breathing virus particles into the air. A new study from the CDC finds that people who are fully vaccinated are not likely to transmit the coronavirus because the vaccine protects them from getting infected in the first place. The study followed 4,000 essential workers who got the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines. It found that fully vaccinated people are 91% less likely to get coronavirus infections, even asymptomatically. And for the small percentage of people who still got infected, they had less virus in their noses and were sick for fewer days, which likely narrows the window of transmission. Currently, around half of the adults in the U.S. are fully vaccinated. Ping Huang, NPR News.
President Biden is expected to resume negotiations on his massive infrastructure proposal with congressional Republicans before he leaves for Europe this week. The two sides are still deadlocked over the scope and size of the bill. They also remain far apart on how to pay for it. Biden has proposed raising the corporate tax rate to offset the spending. Republicans have said that's a non-starter. The president's nominee to be the country's next U.S. public lands chief gets her first confirmation hearing in the Senate today. NPR's Kirk Sigler reports, if confirmed, Montana environmentalist Tracy Stone Manning would be the first permanent director of the agency in more than 4 years.
After going the entire Trump administration without a Senate-confirmed director, Senate Republicans today will get the chance to grill President Biden's pick. Montana environmentalist Tracy Stone Manning, she's expected to face questions about the administration's freeze on new oil and gas leasing, a program she'd be in charge of running.
That's NPR's Kirk Sigler reporting. You're listening to NPR News in Washington.
The time is 4 minutes after 9. This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning. I'm Michelle Corum. Governor Ron DeSantis signed a pair of bills into law yesterday designed to curb the influence of foreign governments on state agencies and higher education institutions, especially China. The laws were crafted in response to high-profile Florida cases involving medical and academic researchers. Under the Combating Corporate Espionage in Florida Act, someone who shares trade secrets with a foreign government could be charged with a first-degree felony punishable by up to 30 years in prison.
Chinese Communist Party has made it a mission of their global expansion of power to steal intellectual property from our businesses, our government, and our academic institutions, all to further fuel their global objectives.
The other bill signed by the governor requires state agencies and universities to report gifts or grants they get from any foreign source valued at $50,000 or more. The Jacksonville Transportation Authority is expanding its mobile COVID-19 vaccine program, which it calls Wellness on Wheels. There's now a daily vaccination site at the JTA Hub on West 44th Street across from Gateway Town Center. This service follows the closure of the federal COVID-19 vaccination site that had been operating at Gateway Mall. It closed May 25th. 79 degrees in Jacksonville now. Possible afternoon thunderstorms in the low 90s this afternoon. This is WJCT News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with the Name Your Price tool, offering a range of coverage and price options to choose from. Now that's Progressive. More at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. And the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
A local bakery learns the hard way that homophobia is not good for business. Good morning. We're live from Studio 5. I'm Melissa Ross. This is First Coast Connect. Thanks for listening. Just ahead, how one local bakery is the latest business to feel the sting of wading into the culture wars. Give us a call. It's 549-2937 to join us. Then later, why UNF has made a major archaeological discovery. We'll look at their dig. But first this hour, it's Pride Month. Not good timing for a local business facing backlash for offensive comments on social media. Sonati's Bakery in Jacksonville Beach has issued an apology after one of its owners posted anti-LGBTQ messages. Now, among other content, Sonati's the other day shared a meme celebrating what they called Straight Pride Month and praised heterosexual relationships as natural. It's not the first time, by the way, Sonati's has offended its customers. And, of course, Sonati's is by far from the only business getting into hot water this summer for these kinds of social media posts. So as we begin the hour, we're going to take a closer look at businesses feeling the heat of the culture wars. Tim Gibbons is editor at the Jacksonville Business Journal, and he has some thoughts. Hi, Tim. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us. And let us know your thoughts, everyone, about Sonati's and if these kinds of posts affect where you spend your money. 549-2937. Give us a call. Emails to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Tweets to @MelissaInJax. And our Facebook page, as always, is open. So, Tim, I first noticed this crop up the other day when some people I follow on Twitter posted that they were offended by what Sonati had posted. Beloved bakery out at the beaches. People love their donuts and other products. It's not the first time Sonati's has posted beliefs that they share that are controversial to some of their customer base. They have apologized, but there are a lot of folks out there who say they won't patronize Sonati's anymore. And so from a business perspective, you know, what are your thoughts about this? Locally owned businesses tend to get in trouble when they take a side one way or the other on cultural issues.
They do, and it's a perilous path. And you can see a local business who, particularly somebody who is not thinking through the idea of having a brand strategy, of having a social media positioning sort of thing, that it's literally just somebody jumping on Facebook and posting something that has people upset. And a lot of times the answer, frankly, is people should stay off social media more. That the idea that if you are going to be speaking on behalf of a business, or even you're speaking as an individual, but you are closely tied to a business, you have to be aware that it will affect your brand, whatever you say.
Yeah. Sonati's say they are going to review and revamp their social media policy and that they are sorry for offending customers. It isn't the first time they've done this kind of thing. And, of course, they're not the only business that's been getting attention lately. V's Pizza in San Marco had to respond after they put up signs. Actually, it was in Georgia, V's Pizza in Georgia, but people mistakenly thought it was the V's Pizza in San Marco. Signs were posted associated with their brand saying that they couldn't find employees due to government handouts because no one wants to work anymore. That was what the sign said. And then,
that has been a huge thing. And as we talk to people, and it's interesting because I've had these conversations with a multitude of business owners in the past couple of weeks, and it's interesting listening to the different ways that they phrase it. Spoke with a local staffing company recently who had a very nuanced take on, okay, you know, these programs helped people get through the hump, and now it's time to, now that we're moving forward, as those programs draw down, here's what employers should do to attract good companies or good employees. And there was a certain amount of these government programs might be keeping people out of the workforce, but it was done in a nuanced, contextual sort of way. On the other hand, you have a bunch of lazy bums won't come and work for me for, you know, $1.25 an hour. And that's the type of thing that's going to get social media outraged.
Yeah. And it's driving people's decisions as to where they want to spend their money.
Exactly. And I mean, you can imagine someone saying, they look around, it's Pride Month, and there are many businesses out there who are celebrating Pride. And there's even a backlash there where you have businesses who don't do anything all year long. They don't do anything to fight for what their customers would see as a cause of social justice. But during Pride Month, they want to get LGBTQ spenders to use their money at the operation. And that creates a backlash because there's a feeling that you're just using people. So it's a very dangerous terrain for a business, particularly a small local business that, you know, frankly, the idea that a bakery has a social media policy, you know, might make one chuckle. That you know, we're not talking about, you know, CSX or Florida Blue or somebody who, of course, has a social media policy. You're a bakery. But yeah, you need to have something that you can point to and tell your employees and your owners, in the case of a small local business, what's appropriate online and what isn't.
Now, here's another example to talk about. This is a bakery in Texas called Confections. They posted an image of heart-shaped cookies iced with the rainbow flag last week to mark Pride Month. They received a bigoted backlash. People said they would cancel their orders. They lost followers on social media. When they posted about this, they say they then had tears of joy because people showed up in droves to support Confections, standing in line to buy their products. And so local businesses have become the latest proxy in the culture wars. People are using their patronage or their lack of patronage of a business to demonstrate their politics, Tim.
And in some ways, I think that what businesses have to do, frankly, is decide how much they want to lean into this. I would well imagine that if you're a bigoted business, that there are areas, that there are customers who would seek you out. So the idea that, maybe you want to have a customer base that is, what others might consider bigoted or homophobic or something along those lines. And if that's what you want to do, I almost think you have to commit to doing it. I don't think that's a good path. Business should not do that. But if you are going to put yourself out there on social media and express an opinion, people won't like it. Frankly, no matter what side of the political divide you're on, somebody's not going to like it. Mm-hmm. Where I think businesses really get burned is when they just wander into it. You talk about it being the latest front in the culture wars. Just kind of wandering in front of, into a minefield is not comfortable for anybody.
Lots of calls. What are your thoughts about how a local bakery is the latest flashpoint in our culture wars? 549-2937. By the way, here's an email from a listener named Shannon. She is echoing the remarks of a lot of Facebook commenters. She says, I stopped patronizing Sonati's, Publix, Home Depot, and Chick-fil-A, among other businesses, because I totally disagree with their political and social messages. They probably could care less whether I walk in the doors or not, but at least I feel good about taking a stand for what I believe in. 549-2937. Eric in Arlington. Hi, Eric. Good morning.
Morning. I haven't heard of, and maybe you guys can correct me, I haven't heard of one single business that condemned what happened on January 6th. I haven't heard one single business condemn the big lie, the perpetuation of the big lie of the Republican Party.
Well, corporate America did, for a time anyway, withdraw political contributions to members of Congress that voted to overturn the election. They took their money away. Whether they keep doing that, though, Eric, is the question.
Well, I was speaking to specifically locally owned businesses, but so I guess I don't know what that says about the patronage of the people that use these businesses. I think that they're afraid they would be afraid to offend Donald Trump, Trumpers, because there's so many of them in this region. And by the way, Joe Manchin, just as an aside, and then I'll hang up and listen. Joe Manchin is standing in the way of legislation, really important legislation to help correct the economic gap between the rich and the poor, to fix America's infrastructure and so on. And I wonder why he's doing that. I have a sinking feeling, even though it's unpopular with the people in West Virginia where he represents, I have a sinking suspicion that it's because of donor money to his campaigns. In other words, the wealthy in West Virginia and other parts are going to threaten to withhold campaign contributions if he doesn't hold the line with the Republican Party, even though he's a Democrat. Thanks for taking my call. That
could be, although it's a little bit off topic. But that said, Tim Gibbons, whether it's anti-gay sentiments during Pride Month or whether it's trying to suss out where people stand on preserving our democracy, we are an extraordinarily divided country. And it's troubling, to say the least, that
it is.
We are. This is where we are.
It is, and frankly, it's very difficult for businesses trying to navigate it, because what business leaders say matters. I mean, you look at the expansion of the HRO, the Human Rights Ordinance, here in Duval County. There is one of the reasons that passed, and not discounting all of the hard work that the activists and the supporters of that bill put into it. But when they got the Civic Council, when they got the Jack Chamber, when they got the people who are leaders in this community on board with it, having the Chamber of Commerce come out in favor of equality like that sends a very strong message. And I think it is one of the things that smaller businesses sometimes have to learn, that there has been a change in society and we are a more progressive and a more welcoming and a more equitable place. I don't think we are, at a place where anybody can say that fight is done, but society has shifted and there will be a backlash
decisively. Yeah, it's decisive. And yeah, absolutely right. 549-2937. Ryan on the north side. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Melissa. How are you?
Good. How are you? Go ahead.
So I just wanted to add a comment on the goings on right now. I am a gay man. I'm married to my husband, and we live up on the north side. I have to say we've reached a point where we don't even look and see which businesses are necessarily gay friendly, because there's not much of a point sometimes. Well, we feel like it's futile at certain times. Even with corporations that are infamously discriminatory against gays, like Chick-fil-A. We even have a joke that it's kind of a part of gay culture to either work for Chick-fil-A or eat at Chick-fil-A regardless. So I guess I just wanted to know maybe if anyone else felt similarly, like there is a sense of futility in even paying attention to this sort of controversy when it's something that we've been dealing with for such a long time.
I'm so sorry you feel that way, Ryan. And before I let you go, let me ask you your thoughts about this. Burger King during Pride Month says it will donate 40 cents for every chicken sandwich it sells in June this Pride Month, up to $250,000 to the Human Rights Campaign. It's a shot across the bow at Chick-fil-A, which is well known for its anti-LGBT views. And so, some corporations are going out of their way to show solidarity.
Right. And I mean, that's fine and great and all. I mean, I wouldn't I wouldn't say that I am I don't necessarily feel negatively about it, but I would like to see it pick up a bit more momentum. So I think it just hasn't reached that point where it's become like, okay, this is a wave that we can actually catch. This is actually something that will pick up momentum. Yeah, I'm not sure what else I could really add to that.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Ryan. I appreciate your thoughts. And this is something anyone can have an opinion on, Tim Gibbons, but LGBTQ Americans, obviously for them, these discussions are a lot more personal.
It does, and frankly, and listening to Ryan, just struck by how tiring the entire thing must be, and I don't know, maybe it's straight privilege in action of not having to think about that. The idea that in some ways you have a segment of our population who has to have in the back of their mind, when they go shopping, are they taking a stand? Are they making a statement? And it's like, no, they just want a chicken sandwich, man, And it has to be tiring to have that be a constant thing that occupies their thought when they're just trying to go shopping.
Lots of tweets. Travis tweets the show. I will never return to Sonati's. They have lost my business with their anti-gay posts. Lane tweets us, I don't choose my businesses by such things. I shop to buy the things I need. I used to boycott brands, but I realized it was impossible to be consistent. I'd have to end up buying nothing. Mark in St. Augustine. Hi, Mark. Thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Good morning. Yeah, you've mentioned this several times, but do these boycotts? Is there any proof that these boycotts even work? I mean, look at Chick-fil-A. They weathered that. Yeah, it was a pretty intense, month-long boycott, and they're bigger and making more money and selling more chicken sandwiches now than ever. So, I mean, who are you really hurting if you boycott Sonati's?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that, Mark. Tim Gibbons, I don't know that a boycott has really worked since the Montgomery bus boycott in Alabama during the civil rights era and the Rosa Parks era.
Right. So the research is that no, boycotts don't work in the sense of, directly, I'm not shopping at Publix, so they're going to stop donating to a politician I don't like, sort of thing. But they do a lot toward raising awareness, and they can change a company's brand reputation. So depending on what you're going after, it can have an impact. And I mean, look, Sonati's apologized. There's if you're looking to affect change, they backtracked from what was posted. So the outcry, at the very least, had that sort of impact. It's up to the individual to decide if that's enough of an impact. But no, boycotts don't do anything in terms of changing the ship of a company. Publix isn't going to massively change what it's doing. You mentioned the donations to politicians, where that wasn't a boycott. That was just people getting angry online, and you had companies change their donating policies for a while, and then they went back to what they were doing because once the heat dies down, it's back to life as normal.
And whether it's big companies or getting back to our original discussion, smaller companies, which have really thin margins and theoretically can't afford to alienate a single customer. This is so fascinating because if you're a small business and you're trying to meet a payroll and pay your rent and such and pay for your product, it just seems kind of boneheaded to put out anything that could offend a large segment of your customer base. But it still happens all the time.
It does, and frankly, I think you can feel sorry for a small business who wanders into this without being aware that they're wandering into it. The Sonati's, I believe, their last kind of social media outcry was over their policy on masks, and as we move into the new normal post-pandemic, obviously the mask conversation will stop being something. But that I think was the biggest flashpoint of recent times of companies making stands that frankly nobody asked them to. It just when you had the caller who said they just go shopping just to buy their stuff. I think some of the times people honestly don't want their bakery or their grocery store or their whatever to be taking stands and making statements. Just serve the donuts.
On Facebook, Julie writes, in addition to Sonati's, add Angie Subs to the list of businesses at the beaches we don't patronize. They are also known for making political statements. And she says, I also think Publix is flying under the radar as far as awareness of how their money went to support the January 6th insurrection. We have a call about that. It's Linda in Mandarin. Linda, Publix, you have thoughts?
Yeah. I know what you just said about boycotts don't work, but, there's a segment of the population that worked for one time. It's just a personal thing for me. I have not gone back to Publix, and Publix is very convenient because, how you love to shop there on every corner. But I drive past them because I will not support a business that, major shareholders owner funded the insurrection. 2/3 of the budget came from her. Now, people can say, oh, that's personal. And I think the businesses are also giving, they come out with something outrageous and then somebody apologizes. So for some people that calms them down, oh, they made a mistake, they wandered into it. In 2021, why is a business in business? If you're wandering into things, you may not need to be in business, or you need to put up a sign, you do not serve gays, blacks, whoever you don't want in your business. Put the sign up and go and get sued. I just don't think a business in 2021, and I have a business degree, you don't have to go to business school to know, why are you in business? Have you lost the vision of why you opened your business? People want to come in for your donuts, and you can have your own personal views, but to be offensive, apologize. If they've done something before where they had to apologize, then I don't think we need to give them that they wandered into it. They walked into it and they know they can do an apology. So for Publix, they were convenient. I love them, but not so much. I haven't been back since I found out that they funded the insurrection, and I don't need to go. I've got Whole Foods, I've got Fresh Market, I've got too many other options. Publix is more convenient, but I don't need to give them my money.
All right, Linda.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. And Rob emails the show, my family feels strongly about supporting fair causes, but we also write letters to the corporation letting them know why we will not step foot in their store again. You know, Tim, listening to all of the feedback from everyone out there, to me, the underlying narrative that's going on is that I think the average American often feels kind of powerless to really affect any real change on these kinds of issues. And deciding where they will spend or not spend their money is a tiny little act of claiming their power, claiming their agency over these big discussions.
Right. There's nothing that as citizens, as individual citizens, people might feel they can do to deal with the insurrection in Washington, but they can look at, and just to be clear, it wasn't Publix itself, but the Publix heiress who donated the money that funded it. You know, that's how you can make a stand. That's how you can make a statement. I also think that people sometimes feel blindsided themselves, where if you're picking up a pumpkin donut, you don't think you're making a political stance, and if suddenly the business is, you're getting tied into that. Now, you know, if you're bringing donuts into work, you now have to have a conversation about where they're from, and people honestly just want to eat their donuts, and so people can almost feel attacked, particularly if it's a favorite brand who is taking stances that the individual doesn't agree with. Now it feels like they've been betrayed.
It is always so great to have your thoughts about these issues. Tim Gibbons, editor at the Jacksonville Business Journal, covering this business community like a boss. Tim, thank you.
Thanks a lot. You have a good Tuesday.
All right, much more still ahead. Later in the hour, some summer read ideas from our book club, but up next.
The National Climate Bank Act is proposing to create a nonprofit, federally funded bank that would then channel funding through green banks across the nation.
Creating a new climate bank for Florida and the nation. That's next. Welcome back. Well, a Florida executive recently testified before the Senate Environment and Public Works Subcommittee. The topic? How to create a national climate bank to rise to the challenge of our time, climate change, and how to pay for its impacts. Dwayne Andrade is Chief Financial Officer of the Solar Energy Loan Fund here in Florida, and she explained to me how green financing could work. Take a listen. Duan, a pleasure. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you.
You recently testified before Congress about the proposed National Climate Bank Act. Can you tell us about this proposal and what it would do?
Sure. So the National Climate Bank Act is proposing to create a nonprofit, federally funded bank starting with $100 million that would then serve to channel funding through green banks across the nation that are working on several types of different projects that infrastructure, residential, housing. So we're talking about basic things like hurricane impact windows and doors and fortified roofs that would advance solar energy, wind, or whatever type of clean energy is more appropriate depending on location. And would also obviously focus on energy efficiency. So through a combination of climate resilience, energy efficiency, and clean energy, you really reduce carbon footprint, but most importantly, you improve the quality of life of people, and you also create jobs. And this is one of the fastest growing industries right now, the green industry, if you wish. But I do want to point out that one of the things that is really important about the National Climate Bank Act and these funds is that there's a 40% carve-out for low and moderate income communities. And that's important because as part of my testimony, what I brought to the attention of Congress is that 42% of American households are LMI, or low and moderate income. And those low and moderate income communities and people across the nation are the ones that can benefit the most from energy efficiency and clean energy measures, because they can save on energy costs, they can improve health, quality of life in homes, and honestly, they've been left behind.
Now, in your organization, the Solar and Energy Loan Fund, you're already doing this kind of work. You provide financing for low to moderate income Florida residents, anything from a roof replacement, an AC replacement, other types of loans, inclusive lending. And particularly when it comes to climate change in Florida, this is going to become an ever more urgent need for so many Florida residents. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So resilience is something that is now being talked about more and more, and we really should have always included it in the conversation of clean energy and, anything related to climate, because it is very basic. An example, a home or a building that doesn't have a sturdy roof and good impact windows or hurricane shutters even, is pointless to even talk about putting a solar array on it, right? There are basic things that need to be done to increase safety and protect people and infrastructure, so that then we can go to the next step and put solar on rooftops and think about other clean energy measures. What we found is that, even though our name is a Solar Energy Loan Fund, working in low-income communities, we needed to focus on these basic upgrades. So most of our lending is for energy efficiency, which is basically high-efficiency air conditioners, which aren't a luxury, they're a necessity for quality of life and health. And during COVID, our demand doubled for ACs, air conditioners, high-efficiency air conditioners that also save money, but also for roofs. Because imagine if you're working, studying, playing, resting at home, you have to have your home now, working 24/7 with air conditioning, because, temperatures were rising, to 100 and 205 degrees. And then you also need a healthy environment that's conducive to productivity. So these basic repairs that, were not really thought about when thinking about clean energy now have become part of the central conversation. It's basically climate resilience. When people say, what's climate resilience? Well, it's basic measures to protect a building or a home, right? And what we do, which is a little bit different and where we innovated as a Green Bank and CDFI, Community Development Finance Institution, was that we do lending based on ability to repay, not on credit scores and not on income. So much of the financial system is based on credit scores, and that leaves too many people out of being able to access fair financing. So what we did was we created an underwriting model by which we can give loans to people with zero credit scores, and we still have less than 2% default rate. So
that's a pretty good track record.
We have a proven model, and I think that's one of the reasons why we were invited to testify, because we have proven that you can serve the low and moderate income population with a fair product that works for everybody.
Yeah. Now, we need to know that your organization, SELF, or the Solar and Energy Loan Fund, you have staff on the ground across Florida, St. Lucie, Orlando, Tampa, Miami. Nobody on the ground yet in Jacksonville, but Anyone in Jacksonville could apply for this type of loan through your organization. This is open to all Florida homeowners. And then the larger issue I know that we've been talking about is how nonprofits can partner up with governments on these types of climate mitigation and adaptation strategies. And how nonprofits, the business sector, and the political world can work on this in Florida. And Florida is so far behind the times, and we are the most threatened state in the country. So how do you see that from your perspective?
Yes, great points, all of them. So I'm going to start by saying that SELF is operating statewide, and anybody can go on our website and apply for a loan online. Everything is done online, and then somebody's going to call you from our office and, follow up. So, yes, we are open statewide, and we would like to see more people from Jacksonville, use us as needed. So that being said, local governments, nonprofits, businesses, all of them can benefit from partnering with us in what ways? Local governments right now are taking the lead on implementing their own sustainability plans because of a lack of, federal policy, especially in the last 4 years, where there was actually we're going backwards in terms of policy for clean energy and everything to do with climate. So because the reality is that in Florida we're suffering from climate impacts every year regardless of what the government thinks or says, local governments say, well, we're going to go ahead and figure out ways to move the needle on these policies that are going to benefit our communities and protect us. The next question the local governments face is, well, how do we do it? So a lot of local governments are going after grants from like the philanthropic world or foundations like Kresge's, MacArthur's, Ford Foundations that have these big grants focused on kind of local governments and help them lay out these plans. So they're able to go after funding to develop these plans, and then they bring in tools. SELF is an implementation tool. So a local government that has a goal of reducing their carbon emissions and improving resilience and really want to focus on an inclusive plan, then all they have to do is partner with SELF, and we will go and bring capital and set up, in that location and work closely with the communities. Typically, because we're a nonprofit as well and we don't have huge profit margins to cover all our costs, and that is because we want to keep our costs low for the clients, the local governments will give us a seed grant or seed funding to hire boots on the ground. So basically, the local government is going to pay maybe for a staff person and a outreach person for one to 3 years. After the third year, SELF no longer needs that seed funding because we built up a portfolio that can then sustain a position. And then the local community now has us with a presence in that community. Every measure counts, but we really have to be realistic in terms of what the community needs and how we should go about this.
Well, I want to thank you for this fascinating topic. She is Duan Andrade, Chief Financial Officer at SELF, the Solar Energy Loan Fund in Florida. Thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure, and thank you for highlighting these important issues. Appreciate it.
Okay, this is exciting. UNF says archaeology team, I should say, is fairly confident they have located the lost indigenous Northeast Florida community of Sarah Bay. This was a settlement mentioned in both French and Spanish documents dating back to the 1500s. Dr. Keith Ashley is Archaeology Lab Director at UNF, and he's on the line now from the dig site. Dr. Ashley, good to talk to you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So tell us about this lost indigenous community of Sarah Bay and how your team was able to find artifacts and determine what you found.
Well, I think we'd have to go back to 1998 and 99 when we were first on the island doing a survey. So we did shovel tests every 25 meters just to see what was out here. And at that point in time, we started to find artifacts that dated to the 15 and early 1600s. So that summer, 98 and 99, we did an excavation. And we started to find part of a house that dated to that time period and other artifacts. So at that point in time, we began to think that we have a Mocama Timucua community. And based on the document, it seemed like Sarah Bay. So we did some more work on the island and couldn't find any evidence anywhere else on the island. We know from documents that San Juan del Puerto, which was the main mission, was on the island of San Juan, which we know is Fort George Island. Another mission was located on Santa Maria Island, which was Amelia Island, and in between them was the Isle of Sarah Bay, and that can really only be Big Talbot Island. So we have cartographic evidence, we have archival evidence, and then the archaeology. So we were out there in 98 and 99, which really led us to think we're at Sarah Bay. We came out in the fall of 2020, and then we're here now, and we're finding, I think, stronger and stronger and stronger evidence to say we have a pretty substantial Native American community here that dates to the 15 and 1600s. And based on what we know from a priest who is at the San Juan del Puerto mission in 1602, he writes a letter, kind of the state of affairs. And in that letter, he talks about 9 Native American communities that are within his evangelical jurisdiction. And one of them, the closest one, is Sarah Bay. So we know that there was a Sarah Nay, which is probably the same one in the French documents as well. And it's described as being 2 leagues, maybe 6 to 7 miles from the fort on an arm of the river. So it really matches up really well.
How exciting.
So based on the indigenous pottery we're finding, we're also finding about 60 pieces of Spanish pottery. So we know that the natives who are living in this community are in contact with the Spanish, so it's definitely after 1580.
How do you verify that the pottery is of the era? Do you carbon date it? What's the procedure where you use to verify these artifacts and date where the time period they stem from?
Well, this is just accumulative knowledge. We've just been building on this for years after years after years, and it does have a radiocarbon basis to it. So we know now the type of pottery that's being made by the Mocama-speaking Timucua in the 15 and early 1600s. We as archaeologists call it San Pedro, based on where it was first found on Cumberland Island, but this is their ware. Had you asked me this question 50 years ago, I probably would have said another type. Well, I wouldn't have said it. Somebody would have said it, that it was another type, but I think we've learned that the pottery type for our area is real distinct. It's not what they're making in St. Augustine. It's different. So we now know what that is. We also now know that in the early 1600s, they changed their pottery type, and I think we have evidence of them changing it here at this site. So that really helps us to narrow down that where we're digging is late 1500s, early 1600s.
And what are your hopes for how these artifacts will help us learn more about the Timucua and how they lived here?
I think some of this is just starting to tell us we can see what they're eating. We do get some corn, so we know that they're growing corn, so we have carbonized corn, and we've dated that. Throughout the last 20 years, we've been dating corn on Mocama sites. And what we've learned is they're not growing corn here until about 1450 AD, much later than we thought. So really, they're just starting to grow corn only decades before Juan Ponce makes landfall in La Florida. So they're really a strongly tidal marsh and estuary-based resources. They're eating lots and lots of fish and oysters and other types of terrestrial animals as well. But farming is much later addition to that. So we can get an idea of what they're eating. We're also getting an idea of what their other kind of tools they have. We have some nice lithic or stone tools that they're still using. We have shell tools. We have bone tools. So we're getting a nice look into their technology. And then we're starting to see that they are incorporating certain European items that they're using in their own way. We have evidence here of pottery we called colonaware. It's being made by the indigenous people who are living in this community, but they're mimicking or copying European forms. So we have a couple of pieces of native pottery that are actually made to look like plates. We have a couple mug and pitcher handles. So these are vessel forms that they didn't make prior to their contact with Europeans. The big thing we're really trying to do is just open large areas so we can try to find patterns of stains in the ground that may represent houses or their community house, anything like that, some place-making features.
this gives you a sense of how long a project can go on. As you said, you've been working in this area for decades, yes?
Off and on, yes.
It
And if
can
you
take
think
a
about
long
just
time
one
for the past to reveal its secrets, can't it?
Yes, it can. And just to give you a perspective, just in this area where we're digging right now since 1998, if you had a 6-foot wide trench, we would have dug that trench the length of a football field. So that's how much we've actually excavated out here. Now we've broken it up into smaller blocks, but we want to open these larger areas so that we'll have a better chance of recovering important structures or features or pits.
This is a reminder, too, of, as we all know, that our part of the eastern seaboard was settled or did see encounters between the native population and European arrival much earlier than Plymouth Rock.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And more so that there's a native history that's 10,000 years before the arrival of the French and the Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And Jacksonville has an incredibly rich indigenous Native American history. It's just literally beneath your feet. So we've worked on other sites that date to 1,000 years ago and 4,000 years ago. So really rich, ever-changing kind of Native history.
This is so fascinating, and it's exciting that you're calling us from the dig site, which I don't believe is open to the public, but we do really await learning more about your research. So thank you so much for sharing this with us, Dr. Keith Ashley. He is Archaeology Lab Director at the University of North Florida, calling from Big Talbot Island, where they are now confident they have found the indigenous community of Sarah Bay, an early, very early evidence of a Native American settlement. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for your interest in indigenous archaeology.
A quick break. Bye-bye. A quick break. And in a moment, a summer reading prescription from our first Coast Connect Book Club leader, Stacy Goldring. Beach reads and more. We've got the list just for you. That's next.
Congaree and Penn Landscape Trees, Jacksonville's family-owned large tree installation, relocation, and comprehensive landscape installer. More info and appointments available at congareetrees.com or 527-1945. Columbia College offers virtual, in-seat, and online classes for undergraduate and graduate degrees. Columbia College, proudly serving veterans and active military. Info at ccis.edu/Jacksonville or 904-338-9150.
I'm Peter O'Dowd. Construction on the border wall stopped when Donald Trump left office on January 20th, but there are still piles of unused steel and mountains in rubble near unfinished sections of the fence.
You can't put it back together. Once you've blasted off the top of this mountain, there's really no going back.
A trip to the border, next time on Here and Now.
Today at 2 on WJCT News 89.9.
On the next Fresh Air, the kissing bug. It's found mostly south of the border. It sucks blood from its victim and can leave behind a parasite with devastating health effects. We talk with Daisy Hernandez, author of a new book that's part medical history, part personal history about growing up in an immigrant family, including her aunt who had the disease. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
Governors in Idaho and Oklahoma have signed measures to forbid the
teaching of critical race theory in schools this year. Republicans are pushing for more to do the same. But educators say it's vital to acknowledge just how deep racial disparities are embedded in U.S. history. Other countries have had to reconcile with the difficult past. Can we? That's next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, if you're over those endless Zoom meetings and you've already binge watched everything there is to see on Netflix, you're not alone and you're in luck because it's time for our book club and some summer reading lists. Our leader, Stacy Goldring, has just the ticket. Hey, Stacy, good morning.
Good morning, Melissa. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. And I'm curious to know what's on your list for reading this summer.
Well, I have a lot of interesting things, and I'd first like to share with you a debut author. Her name is Stacey Swan, so sometimes two Stacys are better than one. And her new book is Olympus, Texas, and I would describe this book as kind of Greek god drama meets Peyton Place and set in the plains of Texas. And basically, we have one of the main characters named March who comes to Texas. He comes home after 2 years in exile because he a little bit had an affair with his brother's wife. And he's not exactly welcome home by his mother. And within a few days, someone is dead. Marriages unravel, people are going ballistic, and sides are taken. Basically, it sounds like a Greek tragedy, and it is. And the author expertly names the characters so they refer to Greek gods. But Melissa, I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot about Greek mythology. Loved the book anyway. And we may be looking at some type of discussion perhaps over the summer about this book. So in that case, I will be giving any information anyone needs if they want to make the correlation. But either way, it's a great summer reading selection.
Very nice.
I'd love to, yeah.
Olympus by Stacey Swan. And you also say, think ahead to some hot collectible books people should pre-order right now.
Yeah. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, and I am, I would really take a look at the new Mina Lima edition of the Chamber of Secrets. Now, this is an artist team who has teamed up. They worked on the sets of the Harry Potter films, and they've created their own world of Harry Potter. And do you remember pop-up books when you were little? Well, this is like pop-up, 2.0. So it's an incredibly illustrated Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets, which is the second in the amazing series. And I would definitely pre-order that book now because it is a collectible. And, it's interactive. You'll be traveling through the Floo network. You'll be visiting the Whomping Willow. You'll be on that spiral staircase that leads to Dumbledore's office, etc. And Harry Potter's really a book for all ages. In fact, I am binging on the Potter series again this summer, but this is what I recommend for people regarding their summer reading. I actually recommend they forget the list. Forget the list. Stay away from any book that has coral color in it. There's a beach umbrella. There's aqua involved in the cover. Just stay away from that. And read what you want to read. Go back to something that gives you comfort. Listening to the news can really be depressing. So, and I would also add, if you are a fan of the classics like Harry Potter or Wizard of Oz or Lord of the Rings, any of these classic type of books, I want to add something to your reading pleasure. Melissa, are you familiar with ASMR?
I am not.
Okay, so it stands for, because I had to look it up, Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. Basically, remember like Muzak, like elevator music that we'd listen to in the elevators? Well, today you can hop on YouTube, whatever you want to do, and type in ASMR, Lord of the Rings, Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, you name it, in my case, Harry Potter, and you can listen. You can be in the book, whether it's the Slytherin common room or it is where, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, wherever those locations are, and you can hear the book in the background. So if the book has a restaurant in it, you can be in the restaurant.
Oh,
listening to
fantastic.
it. Yeah, while you're reading the book. So it's kind of like taking Audible to a whole new level. So you're listening to what's happening while you're, let's say, in the Three Broomsticks, and then you're reading the same thing, you know.
Multi-sensory experience.
Exactly.
How cool.
So that's, it is so cool. And I'm enjoying the books all over again because I'm able to read and then listen. And it's just been a lot of fun. So I definitely recommend that. And then there's one other title I'd like to squeeze in for pre-order. Amor Towles, who wrote Rules of Civility and Gentlemen in Moscow, has a new book coming out, The Lincoln Highway. Now, it doesn't come out till October. However, I know that this is going to be an incredibly popular book for a lot of readers. And what's interesting about this book is now he started with us in New York with Rules of Civility in the city, and then we went to Moscow, clearly with Gentlemen in Moscow, and now he takes us to Nebraska in 1954. Our main character is a young man who has just gotten out of prison. He wants to start his life over again, start fresh with his little brother, and head west out to California until he opens up the trunk of his car.
Oh, we'll have to leave
And
it
then-
there.
Yeah.
People will have to pick it up to find out what happens next. Pre-order The Lincoln Highway on Stacy's recommendation and email her at bookclub@wjct.org to discuss all things books. Stacy, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And that's our show. Thanks for listening. I'm Melissa Ross. We'll be right back here again at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Catch our podcast up later today, too, and have a great day.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Wayne Hogan of the Terrell Hogan Law Firm.
I'm Wayne Hogan. One Dexter call can wreck it all. Learn more through distracted driving presentations for teens and the workforce. Arrive alive. Let's end distracted driving.